My name is Ben Beard. I'm the owner of Red Cliff Homes, and I'm going to swim the English Channel in June of 2023. I grew up swimming, always loved the water, grew up boating, and have always just loved the water. Wanted to be really competitive when I swam in high school. I wasn't, I was pretty slow, but I loved it anyway. Continued to swim after high school, swam at college, not for college, but I swam at college, and I continued to swim beyond that. In the fall of 2019, I started doing a mentorship program with Cardone. And one of the big focuses of that program was on goal setting. And he talked about setting big, 10x, almost unachievable goals. And he talked about setting a goal so big that it started to touch every part of your life. And that was huge for me, because I've set a lot of physical goals. You know, I can't count how many times I said I'm gonna bench press 225 pounds, or I'm gonna do 50 pull-ups in a row, or so, things like that. But it was so minute focus just on that, you know, physical part of my life, and it didn't affect the rest of my life. And so it was never really a very impactful or meaningful goal, and I never stuck with it. And so when I started to think about setting a goal that would touch every part of my life, I started to look at, okay, what is something big that I can do? And I always had kind of in the back of my head that I wanted to swim the English Channel. I always thought that would be cool. And so when I started to look at that as a goal or as an option, I was like, okay, that starts to touch obviously my physical training. Then it starts to touch my, you know, amount of time that I spend training. That's, you know, going to take a ton of time to train. I've got to financially be in a place where I can afford to not work for a couple weeks and go over to Europe, pay for that whole trip, and do that. And then I have to have my business in place where I could leave for a couple weeks and probably not be super accessible to my team and have things keep running without me. And so and then I got to have my family on board, and I got to have them supporting the dream. And so it just started to become this big goal that was touching every part of my life. And so I said, okay, that's it. That's my first 10x goal. I'm going for that. And then I went from there and started setting goals in other areas of my life as well. But that's kind of been over the last 3 years, really the big goal that's been kind of at the center of my life is to swim the English Channel in 2023. I set the goal for 2023 because I knew the timing that would go into training and what it would take to get there. And I knew I had to get my business to a point where we were ready, or I was ready for me to leave. So after I set the goal, I started to kind of look into it. I didn't really know what it entailed. For Christmas that year, my wife got me a book of some guy's experience swimming the English Channel, and he had done it in 1 year from setting the goal to his swim. And so I kind of had that as a model, and then started to look into some other books and things, and I got back in the pool. So I hadn't swam for several years, and so I went and renewed my membership there at New Mexico State so that I could swim at their facility, which fortunately is a big, beautiful facility. Then I started swimming, getting back into the working out, and COVID hit. And I was kind of at a loss. I wasn't sure what to do or how I was going to continue to train. Fortunately, at that time, we were building ourselves a new home, and being the builder, I had a say over what went into the home and what didn't, or what got included in the mortgage or not. And so we were able to purchase a swim spa that is kind of a water treadmill, if you will, that allowed me to continue training throughout COVID without any interruption. That was a huge purchase for us because it was actually more expensive than even my truck at the time. It was like 3 times the price of my truck at the time. And so it was a huge investment, but we were able to roll it into the mortgage and feel okay about making that purchase. And it allowed me to stay focused on my goal throughout that time period. Over the next couple of years, I continued training and swimming and thought I was doing really well. And then come spring of 2022, my family was planning a family reunion up at Bear Lake in northern Utah. And so I decided that I was going to go swim across Bear Lake. And luckily was able to get connected with some people that have done it and know how to do it and had kayaks and could support. So met a lady up there, and she and my wife kayaked across the lake with me. Bear Lake, at the point we swam across, or that I swam across, is about 6 miles wide. And I assumed, based on the speed of my swim spa, I assumed that I was swimming about 2 miles an hour. And so I thought, okay, this, no big deal. I'm gonna go knock out this lake swim in 3 hours. Shoot, I might even do it in 2.5. I'm gonna crush this thing. And before we started, I'm asking her, like, hey, what's the fastest anyone's ever done this? What's the fastest you've ever done this? Thinking I'm much ready to kill this thing. Well, the water, first of all, is 54 degrees. It's freezing cold. I'm wearing just my Speedo and my swim cap and goggles because that's all you can use in the English Channel swim. That's the official rules. And so, and the English Channel is generally 60 degrees or colder. And so I knew this was going to be a good lake to do a prep swim in because it was so cold. And so I just figured, whatever, it's colder than it's supposed to be in the English Channel, but I got to go for it. So jumped in, started swimming, thinking I'm going to crush this thing. I was feeling really good. And I got like halfway across the lake and I was like, man, I'm killing this. And they're like, yeah, you're doing great. And then I started to get tired and cold and hungry. And I look up and it doesn't look like I'm further than halfway across the lake. And I keep swimming for another half hour, another hour, look up and the shore does not look any closer. Well, it ended up taking me just over 6 hours to swim 6.9 miles. And that was a huge wake-up call for me that, oh my gosh, I am not as ready for this as I think I am. And now granted, it was cold, but it definitely was a wake-up call for me that I had a lot more training to do. So I went from, before that I was swimming, I was back in New Mexico State on and off, as well as with the swim spot in my backyard. And so I was swimming, probably 30 minutes, 3 or 4 days a week. And then Saturdays I'd do an hour, maybe an hour and a half, sometimes even 2, because I was going big, 2 hours. And, that was just my training workout. I was probably getting 4 or 5 hours a week in the pool and thought I was doing well. That spring 2022 Bear Lake swim was a big wake up call for me. And so I started training a lot harder that summer. I started to swim an hour almost every day of the week. And I started doing 2 and 3 and sometimes even 4-hour swims on a Saturday because I knew I needed to get more serious about this if I was going to be really competitive for my English Channel swim. Fall of 2022, I decided to make the trip back up to Utah so I could do a second run at Bear Lake. And this time I decided I'm more ready. I'm going to do a double crossing. And so I got up there, I had my parents with me, and they were driving the boat, and it was just me in the water. And luckily it was a calm day, clear, flat water, and did a lot better. But we ended up going kind of off course instead of a direct route across the lake. We got sideways, and so that first crossing ended up being just shy of 9 miles. It's amazing what one little shift in degree can do for you. It was about 9 miles across, and I was just over 6 hours again. Or I think I was actually 5.5 hours to get across, but now I'd gone 8 miles, or almost 8.5 or 9 miles instead of the 6.9. And so I had done better, but I definitely still had some work to do, and I was just cold and exhausted when I got out on the other side. And so I swam back to the boat and took a little break, got warmed up, got dried off, had more food to eat. And then I decided, okay, I don't know if I'm ready to swim all the way back across, but I'm definitely gonna do a couple hours. I gotta really finish this thing strong. I ended up doing about 7 hours in the water, 11 to 12 miles. My GPS watch actually died because the battery ran out. And so that one I felt a lot better about, but I knew I still had a lot of work to do in order to get ready for my swim. Since my fall 2022 Bear Lake swim, I have gotten a lot more committed and upped my training a lot. I'm doing 30 to 35 hours of swimming per month, and we'll be up to 40 and 50 hours a month in April and May, right before I go over to England.
Hey, we're just